Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. This is a special town hall or village hall meeting of the Village of Ossining on the subject of cannabis and zoning. Unless there are any announcements, we can go directly to you, Mayor.
Great. Good evening, everyone. All of the 5 trustees and I are on this call from the village, so we will, I think you have to do a special meeting or, a vote to go into special meetings, Stuart, yeah?
No, you're already in, you're in a meeting, so there's no special vote to take.
Fabulous. So we're going, the purpose tonight, we would like to widen and deepen the forms of communication with our constituents. And so one of the topics that we believe is of import to folks is zoning as it relates to the relatively new cannabis laws that were passed by the state government and which is then executed to some extent at the local level, at least as it relates to zoning. This is really designed to hear from the public. Just a couple of mentions. We're going to start with just a small presentation to frame the conversation. I will introduce everybody in the gallery as panelists. When we're done with that, we want to hear from the public. Just raise your virtual hand. And you will be brought over by either Jamie Hoffman or Maddie Sahaj. They will bring you over. We'd like to keep it to no more than 3 minutes per person, and to go through a list of people. We usually like to do like 1 or 2 people. We'll sort of tell you who's next on the list so that you know. Any material you have that you want to send to the village can go to the Village of Ossining, bot@villageofossining.org is one of the emails. We'll talk about more emails later. The chats become complicated in the sense that we do stop and go through those questions, but it's not really designed for conversations in the audience, so to speak, that sometimes happens. And we'll have a timer on to let people know what's going on. I'll chair the meeting, but all 5 members of the board. You can ask anybody specifically or in group or simply comment on an issue. So let's get started. Let me do some introductions. From the staff, we have Karen Diatori, Village Manager, Jamie Hoffman, the Special Project Assistant Manager, Maddie Sahaj, Attorney Stuart Kahan. We have Deputy Mayor Casada. We have Trustees Fritchie, Lopez, and White. And we have, and also on staff is Jaime Martinez, who is the planner. I think I covered everyone. Let's go into a framing, what I call a framing presentations, just to run through where we are and to inform the public. That also allows more people to join us as they wish. And we can get started. Okay. I see it being shared, but I can't see the arrow on here. Are you managing the Prezi?
I am.
Okay. All right, so let's start. Let's go first into the MTRA, the summary, how we got here, and then we can go from there. Okay, I'm not planning to read it word for word in case anybody's wondering. I'm just going to say that in 2021, the recreational sale of cannabis, known more colloquially as marijuana, was signed into law by the governor, then Governor Cuomo, as part of a Marijuana Regulation Taxation Act. All of this can be Googled, and all this information is available on our website, by the way. The purpose of the legislation, as we understand it, is to create regulated and taxed cannabis industry in New York. New York is certainly not the first state. Many states have already been involved in this endeavor, and the purpose, the stated purpose, is to provide social and economic justice taxes from the sale, and ability for new business development. There is established a New York State Cannabis Control Board, an Office of Cannabis Management, who is really administrating, I would say in simple English, the entire industry, if you will, similar to the liquor industry. Next, please. What we at the local level are here to discuss and what we really are tasked with. We are not the legislators of the law, but at the local level, we are involved with time, place, and manner. Those are 3 items that we look at. The extent to which we're able to restrict the activity of the establishments. Again, this is about establishments, and at the local level, we're really talking about retail dispensaries. We don't affect, nor do we legislate people smoking marijuana wherever they want. That is a state issue. We don't legislate on people growing marijuana. That is also at the state level. In other words, that's a state law. People who are adults can smoke marijuana. Everything related to that and the growth industry, and as in growing marijuana, again, that is not within our purview. That is at the state level. There is a couple of pieces to inform, notwithstanding, as you could see, local regulation, retail dispensary signage is prohibited. So signage is one of the items. And retail dispensaries may not be located within 500 feet of school grounds or within 200 feet houses of worship. That's defined by New York State education law. We'll talk a little bit more about that because that's how you really come up with what the community would like to see as far as where the retail dispensary is zoned. In Ossining, the board did not approve a lounge. We are only approved a retail dispensary. Next. Some opportunities and threats. I'm not sure I love these words, but we'll live with them. The opportunities and the foundation of all of this is tax revenues, really being very clear about business growth, location of those businesses or business, it depends how this gets zoned, and adding any zoning codes that we think makes sense. Some of the threats are, and these are really from learnings from states that have had dispensaries, is that it sometimes causes that there's parking demand because the business is successful, obviously. Potential for people to linger in the area, so people might buy marijuana and then smoke them there, even though they're retail stores, and likely to be viewed as a nuisance business. Nuisance business is a category, so some people view these kind of stores as not appealing. So the board had actually, and mostly I think for this and for ourselves, is it asked the staff to really look at where we have schools and houses of worships, and we have lots of schools and we have lots of houses of worships, to determine opportunities and proper zoning. This is just to give the public a bit of a sense, again, available on our website, of, you know, what's in and what's out, right? So one of the things we're looking at is a focus on a buffering zone from certain type of districts, and then examining really what's left. You could see this chart. We look at religious houses of worships as sort of a non-starter, schools, etc. We look at zoning so it's not near schools. Could be a combination of those, and we also looked at 1 and 2 family zoning. I'm not sure how clear this map is, although on Zoom it's better than looking at some big screen in some big room. Next. So one of the decisions is how many feet is the right amount of zoning rules. There are communities that have looked at 250, 500, 750,000 feet from a house of worship. People define houses of worship differently. To be clear, an option is to absolutely for local boards to do nothing. Doing nothing means that people can open a dispensary anywhere. So the conversation tonight is really about getting input from the public of where one might think that is the best place to put this, how many we should have, etc. So this is one sort of cut. I'm going to give a minute for people to look at if you recognize the community. So many people live here actually know these streets. So educational, again, is it 500, 750, 1,000 feet from an educational, from a school? Again, doesn't have to be a public school. It could be any educational formula that you want to look at. You could look, these are done by parcels. Our planner put this together. And then you combine both religious and education to see where the overlap is. And what you're left with is potential places to put the dispensaries. That's it. I promise to keep it short because it's not really, this you can look at our website, it'll have it, etc. This is really to hear from the public. I'm sure some of you came to the meeting wanting to express some thoughts and share your thoughts, suggestions, ideas, questions with the board. It's a moment to give space for people. So what we're interested in hearing about is where to locate them, because again, that is what the local legislative body does. And please raise your virtual hand to be recognized. 3 minutes, as I mentioned earlier, so that you could speak. And just a reminder that the entirety of this conversation and village hall meeting, we just did village because we thought it was cute, but it's what most people refer to as town hall, is being fully recorded. We don't edit anything. It just, the whole thing gets recorded. Thank you. We don't need to share this, and we are going to open it up. I don't know if I see somebody's hand is up.
Christina Picciano's hand is up, and then we also have a comment in the Q&A. Did you want to do?
Let's do Christina first, and then we could read the comments if people.
Okay, Christina, I'm bringing you over. If you can unmute, please, that would be great. And then when you start, I'll.
Hi.
Hello, Christina. How are you?
I put my question in a comment too, so I don't, it's two separate things.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you for putting this together. Thank you for your presentation. I just want to support the minimum requirement. I think this is such a progressive way to look at the future of Ossining on an economic level that I would hate to limit it. And I just also want to emphasize some of the tax benefits that you had mentioned in the pro. And this is taken from the New York State Cannabis, it's cannabis.newyork.gov. They have a fact sheet, and all the adult use cannabis taxes are deposited in the New York State Cannabis Revenue Fund. After upfront costs, the remaining tax revenue is distributed into 3 separate funds. 40% is to the state lottery fund for education, 40% to the community grants reinvestment fund to issue grants to nonprofit and community-based organizations in communities disproportionately impacted by cannabis prohibition and other social equity initiatives. And 20% goes to the drug treatment and public education fund to development and implement statewide public education campaigns and provide substance use disorder treatment programs for youth and adults. So, you know, there's just a lot of people talk about some of the negative benefits, but they are addressing some of those concerns about youth initiatives right here from revenue. So by, you know, just please don't limit this, because there's just so much good that could come out of this. And I apologize that my dog is barking in the background.
We like dogs.
Thank you.
We like dogs. We like children. We like all our constituents. It's all good. Thank you very much. I did read your chat. I'm going to say it out loud before we move you back, which is actually when I looked at the presentation, it was very clear. So I thought it will be clear. But as I see it now in its version, it isn't so clear, but let's not, it'll be available for everyone to look at. I think the important conversation is how close or far from a school, how close or far from whatever. Do you want to see it at the, like on Route 9? Do you want to see it in certain zones that you know about, in certain areas that you think make sense? Let's not get caught up in whether it's, you know, Broad Street or Avenue or specific to, you know, another street. Just give us your point of view about sort of a little bit bigger picture, and then I'm sorry that it wasn't clearer, but if you have certain things about the maps, we have the planner, and I'm sure we can revisit that. I just don't want us getting caught up in that. So I think we took both of your questions and comments and went through that. Thank you for that insight. We have another hand. Jamie, if you can.
Yes. Jen Tweel, I'm going to bring you over. If you can turn on your camera and unmute. Thank you.
Hola.
Hello, Jennifer. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you. Just want to make a statement that I'm only speaking as Jennifer Tweel, mom, resident. Forget about any of my other associated titles that you know about me. So I originally thought, and I had stated in previous meetings like this, that and also in my meetings with some of the board members, that a good place for this dispensary would be in a back part of the Arcadian Shopping Center. That was a discussion that has been going around. And I just wanted to share that I've had some discussions with some teachers, both at AMD and OHS. And they have both said that that was not a place that they thought was a good location. So I just wanted to share that with you. And, you know, I also would like the board in some fashion to talk to zoning and or planning boards and really have an idea of what this actually looks like, and something that's fits in with our area and doesn't look like it belongs in Las Vegas. So that's really it. And I know the board is smart, and everything will, all the decisions that will be made will be right for Ossining. And, you know, hopefully it'll all go smoothly. That's it.
Mayor, if I may.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Bob.
Yeah,
Please.
Jennifer, just a question. When you said you spoke to teachers and they said it wasn't a good spot, was there a reason why they said that? I just heard that you said it, they felt it wouldn't be a good spot, but is there a reason?
Yeah, sure.
behind it?
I should give more detail. They just thought that it was too big of an area. It was too, you know, possible area that there's be too much congregation. You know, the object, I guess, of a dispensary is people go in, make a purchase and go home. So they just thought it was too much room there for people like congregating and whatnot. They were saying it more of a safety issue. So they just, you know, and plus the fact, you know, to put it someplace, you know, quote unquote hidden wouldn't be that good either. It's better that it's out in the open on a main thoroughfare where, you know, people walking by can see it and it's not like stuck in the back somewhere. So yeah, I mean, the other location that people have spoken about is there's a lot of empty space down by the train station. And so that was another location that people mentioned. But that was it. I just wanted to share that with you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions, trustees? Okay. We don't usually do lots of questions, but I think it's great. Thank you, Bob, because, you know, good point of clarification. I mean, that's the purpose here. Okay, who is next, please?
Mayor, we have another comment in the chat. Did you want me to read it?
Please.
Okay. It's from Elizabeth Laggett. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Will there be a maximum allowable number of dispensaries in Ossining? I'm in favor of only a small number of dispensaries, not more than 3. Traffic will be an issue. And then she also just followed just a moment ago with start with 1 as a test pilot.
Thank you for that input. The immediate answer is there's no minimum, there's no real maximum. This is why we're having a Village Hall Community Engagement Forum. And what I take away from the question and comment is that for your input is that you want it to be, no more than 3. So we'll jot that down. And your idea that maybe you try 1 and then go to the next and to the next to see how it works out. So thank you for that. I will say that the licensing, by the way, is not done by a village, by local communities. It's actually done at the state level, just like liquor license are. So I just wanted to add that footnote there, but thank you for that input, very valuable as far as sort of creating parameters for us.
We don't have any hands up. Did you want to invite people to raise their hands there? We have one. Oh, and then it went down. Sorry. There it is. Okay, so Mary Ellis, I'm going to bring you over. If you could turn on your camera and mute, that would be great. Thank you.
There she is.
There's a delay in my
Okay.
Zoom. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello.
So I'm really excited about this. Especially, I'm so happy that we did opt in to have a dispensary, and I don't think it should be hidden. I think it should be out front. I think people should know, like where we are. And this is an amazing opportunity for a revenue stream for the town and the village. So I'm into that it shouldn't be hidden. It's very hard to tell from your map that there's anything left. Actually, everything looked so filled in. You couldn't tell, what was not too far or too close from a religious institution or a school. So, I think it would be better to see that, like where are we really talking about? And actually Arcadia to me sounded good in the sense that there's parking. And, I don't know how soon this is how soon is this gonna happen? That there'll actually be a dispensary in Ossining. What are we looking at time-wise?
Okay, so this is town hall meetings or hearing for they're not really set up a lot of conversation, but are you done with your, that's okay. I just want to make sure you're done with your
I'm
thought.
excited.
It's
and
not
I'm
like
happy.
we have 300 people, so we can't do it. If it gets busier, I'm not going to be able to continue doing it, but are you done with your comment and question? So we can, okay. So a couple of points of clarification, any of my colleagues can jump in. So it is hard. You sort of have to look, next time you drive, just sort of figure out what 250, it's really just parameters around what we think will be the right distance. So it's hard for me to say exactly what that looks like. And I think your question is about timing. So this is not this year. Our lawyer can jump in, but everything we've seen from how this gets rolled out, we're not expecting a rollout of anything this year. When we can do the legislation, it takes, all legislation takes a number of months at the local level. Call public meetings, you set up the legislation, you discuss it, you have to vote once you have a legislation. This is just an open form of conversation, discussion with the public. So nothing happens quickly. There's good things about that and bad things about that. There's a lot of thoughtfulness that goes on. So the timing is not this year. Is it next year, the year after? I'm not even sure about next year, but I can't. Oh, Stuart came on. Stuart, do you have a more exact timing than what I understand to be the case?
Mayor, it's not more exact, but I do want to point something out. The state has issued proposed regulations for licensing it would be the first 100 licenses, and these would be issued to people who've been directly affected through cannabis convictions or things like that. It is that regulation is now in a proposed regulation is in a 60-day comment period. So it is not inconceivable that some of those licenses will be issued this year. That's for a very select cohort, but some will be issued this year. So that's just something to keep in mind. So while the bulk will probably not be until the very end of this year, you may see some licenses issued before this year because the commission has already come up with proposed regulations, which are now in the process of public comment.
And I might add, probably similar to liquor license, they're expensive. It's the state level. So
$2,000.
How much?
$2,000.
That's the license, not the business part, though.
That's correct. But the other point to make, Mary, I apologize. These particular licensees will be the ones who will be eligible for state grants and state aid.
Okay.
So that's the reason that the state is sort of pushing those folks and those non-for-profits ahead of other prospective licensees.
Interesting. And we don't know what part comes to Ossining. It's New York. This is about New York State.
Right. We don't know who's going to get what. And if I could just make one point, Mayor, and I apologize. I know a lot of folks have been saying Arcadian. I think it's important to note we're talking about the zoning district because Arcadian is obviously a private shopping center owned by a private business who will have their decision as to whether or not they wish to rent to a particular business. The important thing is the zoning district where it would be located, not as much the identity of who owns the particular business that's there.
Correct. Thank you for the clarification. You're right. We keep saying Arcadian. We do zoning. Almost every piece of property and lot is owned. Mostly it's owned by private individuals. They, as landlords, may decide on what businesses they have. We simply look at zones, and that means the lots that are available if someone wants to open it. But at the end of the day, if a landlord doesn't want it or isn't interested, or the rent isn't the right rent that they want, it's up to them, like every other private business. The village doesn't own businesses. And that speaks also to the whole idea of pilots. We are not rolling out dispensaries. The village of Ossining doesn't roll out business. Businesses come in, they see an open space, they look at the zoning and say, oh, we're allowed to have this business here. It's a bar, it's a liquor store, it's a gas station, it's a whatever. We're allowed to do it. We call the landlord, we see if we can cut a deal, what the rent will be, we build a business. The village doesn't do pilots because we're not rolling anything out. We're simply looking at zoning regulations. I know it sounds obvious, but I just, it's really a little bit about semantics too. So we're speaking the same language. I see another hand up.
Yes,
Jamie?
Kim, yep, no problem. Kim Jeffrey, I am bringing you over. If you could turn on your camera and unmute, and then we will get to the next person after.
Hello, Kim.
Hi, am I here? Hi.
You're here.
I'm
You got to
actually-
update that picture, my friend. The boys
Say
have
again?
grown. You got to update
Oh.
the picture.
Oh, am I not on? Oh.
You are on. You had a
Oh.
picture before you came on. The boys have
Oh.
grown since that picture.
Oh,
How are
that's
you?
too funny. I'm sorry, I'm cooking dinner and I'm learning so much. So I appreciate this meeting and town hall because I'm learning from everything that's going on. And that would be my timer going off. Sorry, multitasking parent mode. So I appreciate the clarification on zoning. I mean, obviously, I think I know it, but it's great to reiterate it because we forget. So in terms of zoning, I would think the area where Arcadian is, without stating whether or not a private entity would allow it or not, I think is a decent area. I understand Ms. Tawil's statement that maybe the teachers think that people can drive and park and sit and maybe partake in a way that maybe you can't if you kind of come in and out. And so I can see where that might be a question. I also think down by the train station, when we talk about ability to get to places and walk to places, that's not a terrible place for zoning in terms of. And also, yes, I understand that there's a whole conversation with respect to this should be legalized and it should not have this stigma, but we're still trying to balance this issue of having kids understand. We've had, 30, 40, 50 years of don't drink and drive and all this stuff. We need to get, the kids grew up in that. We have to get them to the whole, like, you should not partake until you're older and you have the ability to think about it. So I am definitely for places that are not quite as accessible, just because we're still trying to get the kids to understand it's not okay just because the state said, it's okay right now. I think around Route 9, depending upon where, I don't think all of Route 9 is necessarily great. I think to the point where we have lots of kids, where parks, where Nelson Park is, or, where, daycares are, maybe, just, so I would think about where on Route 9, just not as an entirety, and maybe where on 133. So that's all I want to say about that. Thank you.
I very much appreciate it. Thanks for the input and insight. I'm glad you also are finding this helpful and
Yes.
informative. Okay.
So we have another person here. Sorry, Elizabeth Lagat, who had been in the comments before, but I'm going to bring her over. If you can turn on your camera and unmute, we appreciate it. Elizabeth?
Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. And thank you, Mayor Levin. My son, who lives west of Philadelphia, he's an adult with his own kids. The west of Philadelphia, called the Main Line, is a lot like Westchester. And the local town there, named Ardmore, they have marijuana lounges on one block. And there's a few of them. And it happens to be right next door to this wonderful indoor party place where my grandkids go for all their little birthday parties. And it's kind of unpleasant to me to walk past all these are lounges. They look pretty empty. There's a lot of glass. It kind of reminds me of being in Amsterdam with all the prostitutes in the windows, if you'll pardon me, even though I'm from hippie times and a hippie college where everybody did a lot of marijuana before it was legal at Columbia in the 70s. But my point is that I'm concerned about clustering. If we're going to have a lot of geographic restrictions, there'll be certain designated areas that are going to be acceptable. And I'm concerned about multiple dispensaries in a small amount of space, just like a couple of blocks in Ardmore, Pennsylvania, where there's quite a few of these lounges clustered together. And I just thought that should be taken into account. Thank you for your attention.
That's interesting. Thank you. Much appreciated. Okay. Not seeing hands. So I know the people that are on, so I'm seeing everyone's names. Okay.
Can I say something that might spur some conversation?
Of course.
All right. I don't
And
think
then we do have someone who.
No, I see it, but Dana,
Oh,
Trustee
Alice,
White.
Alice has her hand raised. Let's go to Alice.
Okay.
Oh, is it Alice? Okay.
It's Alice. I'm bringing over Alice Joslo. If you can turn on your camera and unmute, we appreciate it.
Hi.
Hello, Alice. Welcome.
Hi. First of all, I do want to say to you, I'm very pleased by your very thoughtful approach that you're taking to this. I was watched your meeting in February, I believe. I was actually out in California because my daughter had a baby. I have a granddaughter now. And I was very impressed by that presentation, and I'm grateful that you have presented these maps to us. I really appreciate the background work that you're doing. My question to you is, what process are you using? Where are you getting information to make the decisions on how many dispensaries you should allow? What is the appropriate buffer zone? What are the appropriate times? I'm just curious how you're getting that information to make those decisions.
Okay,
And
I didn't know if you were done. I'm sorry.
the second part of my question is that the Office of Cannabis Management is still laying down the details, the meat on the bones, so to speak, to the actual law. So there were still so many unknowns with regard to the implementation of this, as the Office of the OCM, as they refer to it, is only just starting that process. So I'm just curious as to how you're going to make these decisions. What will be your thought process? What will you use to reference it to make your decisions?
Good question. I have an answer, but I'm hearing myself talk too much. Does anybody want to chime in? I'm happy to answer, but there's really 5 of us on the board who vote. Anybody want to chime in? I'm happy to do so if I don't see hands.
I think you're doing a great job, Rika, so I'll let you talk for me.
Okay, so Alice, it's for me, this is one of the processes, right? We have about 4 scheduled open forums of engagement. We haven't really, for a number of years, really done this. Sandy Galiff does a lot of this, and she did quite a few of them to garner information. So we might do another one. We might send out surveys. We don't know yet all of the pieces. What we do know is, as you mentioned, we collect information for the meetings, and both the staff and us collect information. There is lots of information coming down from NICOM, which is an organization that supports elected officials and staff, that does a ton of research, legislative studies, legal work, that shares information with us. They're available to anybody, but they actually, it's the New York Conference of Mayors. It's actually designed for exactly folks like us on a number of topics. This is one of their topics. They actually have had seminars on the various issues because they represent representatives from the state, all of villages, towns, etc., from throughout the state of New York. So it's very helpful on multiple issues, and we get it from the public as we get information. We'll announce when we are starting to look at having the conversations. We expect the public that is interested in this topic, not everybody is, as we know, but for those that are on all sides, to email us, to inform us, to educate us, to share information with us. There is lots of information on this topic. And the zoning issues goes also through village staff, through planning, and also village management, and our attorney about the legal issues, the zoning issues, like any zoning issue, whether it's the waterfront, historical, I mean, name the topic about zoning, and there's a process we go. So to me, this tonight is part of the process. It's also the beginning of a process. It informs people who may not generally follow us, but they do want to on this topic, to go online on our website as we update the website, and to reach out to us and share information with us about this topic. And at some point, we'll make an announcement of when we're looking at zoning for this. We'll get recommendation, and we'll have a public conversation in one of our Wednesday meetings. I'm sure more than one, as we look at honing or really piecing together, not posting, but piecing together legislation that we think makes sense. And if we don't do anything, that's also an act, right? So this is one of those, if you do nothing, and there are municipalities that we have discovered who have done nothing in their states, because by doing nothing, what they have said is dispensaries and or lounges, depending what state it is and where they are, you can open one anywhere you want. No limitations. That too is an act. So when people say, you know, you should wait and like really do nothing, I would just say that actually in legislation, my understanding, someone will correct me, is also an actual action. So there's a balance here. And this is how we're getting our input, and we're legislators, right? So we are getting our input from the public in multiple ways. I put it in my mayor's note, people hit reply and give me their commentary, another form of communication. There's 5 of us. Many of you know all of us, some of us, one of us. That's also input for information. That's how I look at it. If anybody else has anything else, but that's the process.
Mayor, we have 2 comments, and then Ms. Joslo has her hand up again. So if I could read the comments for you, then we'll bring Alice over again. The first one is from Kim Jeffrey, and it says, I agree regarding so that there cannot be more than 1 in a particular zone area. And then B. Knowles says, I would hope that whenever a dispensary comes to Ossining, that if Ossining can regulate the business hours, that they be from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. or something like that. Okay. All right.
Good info.
Great.
I'm sorry, you said that Alice has her hand up again?
Yes, she does. I'm going to bring her over now. I just had to clear the screen. All right, Alice, we're bringing you over again. If you can turn on your camera.
Dana, I haven't forgotten that you had also wanted to say something. So maybe after Alice speak, if I didn't mean to, I didn't forget it. We'll bring you in after this. Alice, you need to unmute and put the video on. There you are.
Sorry about that. Okay, so thank you. And by the way, it's my impression that, is Jamie your planner person?
It's Jaime.
Jaime Martinez. Yeah.
Jaime, thank you. You're doing such an excellent job on these. I really appreciate your thoughtful approach to these presentations. So thanks. My question is then, Rika, just in response to what you said, that this is the first of several public forums. You will have more forums discussing these issues as you get more information.
I'm not sure I said that actually.
Okay.
So let me be clearer. This is one of many ways of gathering information. You asked about process.
Okay.
One is that when I send out mayor's message, people respond and give me information on this topic if it's mentioned or any other. Another is that we have, as was noted earlier, email as an entire board, that anybody that wants to share information, opinions, or comments, they should send it to us. Another is that on Wednesdays we hold meetings, and in our legislative sessions, there are opportunities for the public to speak, and people can attend that virtually as long as it's virtual, and then to address issues. Another is that when we start formulating the legislative discussion, there will be a public forum to get public input as all pieces of legislation that we go, and we call for a public hearing, and that's when we'll call for a public hearing. So it's close to what you said. I don't want people to leave here tonight thinking we're having more town halls, or many of them, regarding this specific topic. We are going to have more town hall type meetings about other topics. Sure, if somebody wants to also ask about this topic or something else, it's an open meeting. They're certainly welcome. We're not stopping people from sharing information, comments, or questions with us about topics of interest to them. So that, I think, is just, I wanted just to clarify. Does that make sense?
It does, but I'm just interested in how you all will decide what the appropriate number is, what the appropriate buffer zone is. You know, I don't.
So, Mayor, if I may, hopefully try to answer that question for Allison.
Sure, Manny.
So Allison, about a month ago, our planner, Jamie Martinez, actually was in a work session with us, showing a little bit more zoom in details on what zones could possibly be the location of the dispensaries. So one of many questions that we, the board, brought up at that time to Jaime was, you know, what is 200 feet, what is 500 feet, what is whatever.
Yeah, I attended that meeting, Manny.
So okay, so that's part of the process. So that's how we will be able to determine, because as you know, in a location that, you know, we can say this is an area where we could potentially have that doesn't mean that area has an empty storefront. Sure, it could be part of a mix of a retail portion. And depending how far the buffer zones are, that will determine if we can say this area can be 500 square feet from these other locations. That will give an idea to how many businesses could potentially be in that area as well, in that zone. So if we have different clusters or different zones where we're going to be looking into this, that will determine the area. Now, as the mayor said, it depends on how many licenses the state gives. We do not have, and probably I think I would defer that question to Stuart. We cannot say it in an area X, we can only have one of these type of businesses. Sure, it will be limited to the accessibility to what that zone looks like. For that matter, we just might as well just say spot zoning, and in spot zoning, we can just say this lot can only have this type of services. And I don't think we are doing that at all. So I think as the process moves along, as the next step, when Jaime Martinez, our planner, will come in front of us, we'll have a little bit of a better sense of what that looks like. And I know I'm not answering your question, but I think we'll get there. We're just not there yet.
So I appreciate what you said, Manny, and I did attend the meeting in February. And again, I complimented Jaime because I thought he did a really great job on that presentation, including the signage issues and stuff like that. You're approaching it very thoughtfully. But like one of the first speakers was, I want the minimum buffer zones. I'm going to go on record that I would like the biggest buffer zones that you could muster. My question is, how will you make that decision? What is the appropriate buffer zone? What is the appropriate number? What are the appropriate hours of operation?
Okay, but Alice, at the end of the day, it's a zoning conversation. And the way we do all legislation, we gather as much information as we can. And then we as legislators put our best foot forward and say, based on information that we have, we believe that this is what we would like. And we write up the legislation. We open it to the public, who can say, we agree, we disagree, it should be this, it should be that. And at the end of the day, we vote and say, in the majority, on behalf as representatives of this village, this is the legislation that we will vote for or we don't vote for. Really, there's no difference from this than any other piece of legislation as it regards zoning, of which this is what this body does.
But you have the option, Rika, maybe I'm not asking the question correctly. The law, in the initial law, says certain amounts. But then in the February meeting, you had asked Jaime to increase the buffers. I'm looking at it.
Right.
So he did the work from 200 to 500 to 750 to 1,000. The actual law specifies 200 and 500, but you asked for them to also specify 750 and 1,000.
We were interested in where that would land. So we wanted a map drawn so we could get a good look and not have meetings where people are naming names of streets and we all sit there, some of us knowing where they are, and some of us, we just wanted to see what it would look like, you know?
And I'm very grateful that you did.
Yeah.
So my question is, are you open to increasing the buffers to those other distances that you mapped out?
I can't, well, so in a public meeting like this, and because we're not voting, for myself, I am open to doing that. That doesn't mean I'm going to.
Okay.
Well, I am in the learning process. And because you've been at so many of these meetings, you know that when there's 3 or more of us, we can actually vote. We're not voting tonight, and I don't. And in this level, I chair a meeting, so I don't want to be misquoted. I am open to various variables for my singular vote, but I'm not committing to anything because I'm in the process of gathering information, digesting it. The purpose of tonight is to hear. And as you heard, some people want more, some people want less, some people want in more places, some people want in fewer places. That's the point of and you know this, Alice. I know you know this. So we're gathering information.
Right.
directly.
Oh, Mayor, if I can, please, just to
Yeah,
touch on
sure.
this.
Of course.
Like I say, the state law says 200 and 500, that 500 feet to walk to your mailbox. We know that's close. So, like the mayor said, 750 and 1,000, you know, those are, you know, they seem to be more attractive. Again, I don't know. We're all learning. You know, this is all thrown in our lap pretty quick. I believe we took our first baby step by opting in, which I think was a smart move because these businesses are not just a mom and pop business. They're very, very expensive to open the door. Forget about the licenses. You're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. So when you opt in and these companies that are nationwide that do this, see this, you have a better chance of you being recognized and getting a good reputable company to come into our village and open a business. So, you know, that was part of the decision. And again, it's a learning process for us all. And it's good to hear everybody's input. We're taking it all in, and we will make the best decision as a board for our village and for our constituents that I think will benefit the village in the long run. You know, a lot of unanswered questions. How many in zone? Where are you going to put it? There's a lot of unanswered questions. So it's a work in progress, but this type of forum helps us, brings up other questions like, wow, you know, she had a point there. What about this? What about that? So hopefully that kind of clarified a couple things. And I'm done.
I'll chime in as well. So for my piece, I would say that it's helpful to start with what are kind of the initial conditions that we're trying to meet here. So as I see them, there are two. One is we want to create zoning rules here in Ossining, a zoning policy that allows for dispensaries to exist. We don't want to regulate them out of existence. And so if they're too conservative, if you will, if you permit me the word, too conservative, then it might be that we say, sure, we can have dispensaries, but there isn't anywhere actually functionally that they can be. On the other hand, we don't want to be, the other initial condition we want to be aware of is quality of life. There are folks that are really against cannabis generally. There are folks with young kids, older folks, whatever it is. And whether it's because you send your kid to a school, go to a religious institution, or just looking to have the character of the village be preserved, you don't want to make Ossining look unrecognizable. We've heard make it look like Vegas, Amsterdam, any other large city. Totally understand that. And so instead of saying, yes, we will keep the character of the village, but also permit dispensaries in a way that is ungrounded, it is helpful to hear, to see maps like the one that Jaime created that will illustrate to us if we go in either direction, starting with the minimums and then going to a maximum of 1,000 feet, where actually does that put you? Now, I'm gonna give a warm warning here to Jaime that I'm gonna ask him to speak right after I finish. So prepare for that. But in conversations with Jaime, if you're looking at the minimum requirements, that opens up a certain number of spots. And if you look at the maximum requirements, the most allowable, that reduces it, but it's still, there are still some spots remaining. It would be helpful, Jaime, if you would just give some color and context to what each of those look like right now.
Sure thing. So the minimum requirements, as Trustee Fritchie just mentioned a few moments ago, are that you have to be 200 feet from a religious institution and 500 feet from a educational facility. So for our interpretation, the educational facilities distance is not like 500 feet from the building per se, but 500 feet from anywhere on the ground. So that's the edge of the property for the high school, for instance, everything that touches Route 9, you have to be 500 feet from that. So the functional distance from the entrance of the school is a lot farther than 500 feet. And because of those changes, there's a lot of areas, some areas that were mentioned earlier, like Station Plaza and the waterfront, near the waterfront is functionally out because of its proximity to the Austin Children's Center. So that entire area is covered. So I don't know if you want to do this now, but I do have maps. I have the maps available that show this, and I can kind of.
I say unmute yourself and fire up the maps.
Okay. All right.
I was just going to suggest that because I think that's helpful.
Right. So the first map is the most, it's the minimum restriction essentially. And so kind of zooming in on the starting from the top of the village, I guess, you can see there are a few areas that have retail opportunities. So we tried to, when I made this map initially, I wanted to focus in on areas that currently permit retail in only those areas. So anywhere that retail is not currently permitted was automatically excluded. So that includes any of the single family home districts, the 2-family home districts, the multifamily planned residential districts. And there are a few districts that do have apartment buildings in them, but they're kind of open to other alternate uses, including retail as conditional uses. So those remained in. But what you can see here is that there's there's an old nursery up on Route 9 that is in a very small section of the NC1 zone that is permitted. There's the Dominican Sisters Church facility, which I think probably has a church somewhere in the central part of it, but because the facility is so big, affects everything around it in 200 feet at a minimum. If you go down 9, you'll see that there's storefronts and opportunities along that district until you get to Snowden Avenue, where it turns into a 2-family district that you pass right through. So there's not much availability there. There's a stretch of Croton Avenue, which does not have any churches or schools near it, at least none that are registered on the tax assessor's office. So that area currently would be open. And then when you get to the downtown, there's a real limitation to where you can actually put it. There aren't that many storefronts. Most of them where they would be available under the minimum restrictions are in the sort of 5-corner area. And so that would extend down a couple hundred feet, about halfway through the block. But much of that is out, including the area down by the police station, Sing Sing Kill Brewery, because the front of those properties effectively are in the minimum buffer area because of their proximity to the Austin Children's Center. Once you get out of that part of the downtown, there is some small sections of Water Street that technically would be available, but those are not really set up to house retail properties right now. So they'd be challenging, I think, from a development standpoint. So you get down farther into South Highland, and there are properties that are currently sort of at that split between Revolutionary Road and South Highland on both sides that are in retail zones. And the Arcadian Center is entirely in a retail zone. It's not next to any schools. It's not next to any, any other things that would come and cause an issue. So the next map that I would show you is the maximum. And so the maximum would be 1,000 feet combined. So this is that maximum area. And when you do the maximum area, which is essentially 1,000 feet from religious or educational uses, you see that this little parcel is out now. It's no longer eligible. There's a very small stretch along Route 9 that is 1,000 feet away from both the Dominican Sisters campus as well as the school over here. So there's only about 10 separate parcels and locations where you could put it right there. There's a very small stretch of Snowden Avenue. Those are all townhouses and empty lots. I think the one's an empty lot and the rest are townhouses. They're effectively unbuildable, so you couldn't go there. There's maybe one parcel here at the corner of Water Street by the bridge where you could put it in. by the waterfront. And then there are a few parcels here. So this is, I believe, this is Nelson Park. Am I correct here? So there's a couple of parcels right here, the top that would remain right before you hit South Highland. And then there are some areas on South Highland Avenue that remain in, as well as Arcadian Center at even the 1,000-foot mark. And then I believe there is a small section of Croton Avenue that also remains in the middle. This is the former nursery site, to give you some context of where that is. And then there's some parcels to the left. This is the Risco Music School here, and some parcels across the street. So those would be the areas. So at 1,000 feet, there still are locations in the village, not a lot. And it's a big divergence between the two, and everything else is sort of migrates, from one end to the other, and depending whether you feel like more distance from schools is more important, and less distance from religious institutions is less important. I have maps that cover sort of every single one of those, so I can pull those up, but there's like 12 of them. I don't know that.
I don't think you need to. I mean, I think this is the min and the max. So, I forgot on Route 9 with the sisters, like how much property that is. I think this gives us the range. It gives us it's a ballpark. It'll be on the website if people want to actually look at every lot. Again, let's be clear, it's a zoning. It's still owned by people. They have to decide what tenants they want. On one hand, on the other hand, I think that Trustee Lopez comment is, the board had stated it pretty clearly. We're not zoning this out of existence. That is not actually what we had stated very publicly that we want to do. These are viable businesses, and business development is actually something very important to the village. So I just want to make sure that it's heard, not that it's a single voice saying it, but the board actually voted in majority about that. So we are looking at opportunities. We have and Trustee Lopez, were you done? Because I know you turned it over to Jaime Martinez, but were you done?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Please.
I'm really not behind going for a maximum buffer. The more because then you are limiting severely, the places. I mean, it's got a lot of moving pieces as it is. If somebody wants to open a dispensary, it has to be in the right spot. There has to be available storefront. There's all kinds of variables that go into opening any business. There's even more that are going to go into opening a dispensary. And a maximum buffer of 1,000 feet to me is close to zoning it out of existence. I'm personally not, I can tell you right now, behind that. I think that, if you're talking about business opportunity, free enterprise, free markets, I am not into really limiting that. And I'm surprised the Children's Center has that. I'm surprised the existence of the Children's Center on State Street would affect whether you could have a dispensary on the waterfront, way below. How far are you putting the boundary in that? If it's Children's Center is considered educational, right? So school, I guess.
The parcel goes all the way down to Hunter Street. It's 500 feet from Hunter Street.
That's why it's a hill, so it's hard to tell.
A mile, I don't see the point of us allowing dispensaries and then being so punitive in our zoning that it's almost impossible to open one. That's basically how I feel.
Well, thank you. And this is exactly why we asked for multiple maps. This is sort of the work that went into it. So exactly for these conversations. We have two hands up, I think, Jamie.
We do. And then we have some comments. So I'll do the two people and then we'll go to the comments. Beth Sniffen, I'm bringing you over and I will start the clock when you come over. You are if you could please turn on your camera and unmute. Thank you. You're
Hello.
Hello, how are
Hi.
you? Welcome.
So as everybody probably knows, I was totally against having the dispensaries in Ossining. Moving forward, we have them. They're here. I just want to say that I am really impressed with this meeting and how open everything is, and the maps that are that are presented here. I just think that having this meeting and all of us really able to express ourselves, I really want to thank all of you for that opportunity. So with that being said, the thing that I just want to just make note of, I know that I came on a little late, and so I know we're talking about, and we use the word Arcadia and the waterfront. I have a senior in high school. I just know that kids hang out in those places. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't zone in those places, but I would probably love if we maybe had more places available for kids to hang out, so that if we did zone in those places, then we could offer the kids other places for them to hang out. That is just my 2 cents right there. Thank you. And thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Very much appreciate your input. You'll be happy to know that one of our DRI projects and even beyond DRI is through the parks and really the community center as a place for teenagers, etc. So, hopefully we are affecting on multiple level. Okay.
I have 2 more people. I've got, first I'm going to bring over Mr. Stephen Kern, and then someone named Leslie.
Okay, and after they're done, we're going to go to the chats.
Sure.
Okay.
Stephen, I'm bringing you over now. If you could please turn on your camera and turn and unmute. Mr. Kern, we can see you, but we need you to unmute.
There it is. I don't know why the camera's not on. Oh, there it is. How many buttons are there? Okay.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I did my background just special for this occasion. It's not usually what I use for Zoom, but I looked at the possible backgrounds and I said, yeah, that's the one for this. And I just wanted to note that, we're not, we're not totally reinventing the wheel here. It struck me that where it would or would not be appropriate to have dispensaries, it might be kind of similar to where it is and isn't appropriate to have a bar or a liquor store. If you can go in someplace and buy a case of bourbon and bring it home, then that might not be a bad place. Similar type of idea to be able to buy cannabis and bring that home with you. So the types of things, the types of considerations that you use to figure out where there could be a liquor store for off-premises consumption, because that's what you're talking about here, off-premises. Those would be, I would think, similar considerations, or at least if it doesn't work, if it doesn't translate exactly, it would be those kinds of areas, an area where one's okay, probably be an area where the other should be okay. I don't think I'm not sure how it works with bars and liquor stores exactly, but I imagine there's something that makes it you can't open one up right next to a school. You probably can't open a liquor store right next to a house of worship, or at least it's probably not a coincidence that there aren't any, right? And as far as the quality of the village, like it shouldn't become like Las Vegas or something like that. And I think that is a legitimate consideration, but that might be more appropriately addressed as far as signs. I mean, you know, it's like you don't want to allow 1 million neon signs that would make it look like Las Vegas. Well, you don't want to do that with regard to dispensaries either. And I think considerations like that would probably bring you to where you want to wind up. Looking at the maps that were just up there, I was happy to see those maps, and yeah, there's like hardly anything left if you go with the maximum distances there, and I don't think that's, no, I don't think it serves a point really. So that's my 2 cents about that. I think the lower limits would be fine. Thank you, and thank you for having this opportunity for people to.
Great. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Thank you. I think Leslie is next.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, sorry. Hey, Leslie, I'm bringing you over. If you could please turn on your camera and unmute.
Just need you to unmute. Hello.
Hello. Hi. I'm Chad. I'm on my wife's computer. That's Leslie. So I just wanted to piggyback on the last speaker. I think that people have kind of a warped view on what dispensaries are. I'm not a user. I'm just heavily invested in weed companies. Dispensaries look like Apple stores. I mean, a lot of these dispensaries that are around the country are gorgeous. Very classy. You know, there's not.
If I can interrupt for 1 second, you started off, it was really fuzzy. It almost sounds like you're in an echo chamber. It's actually getting worse, and we're recording this, so I think it's going to be even harder for people to hear you. I don't know if there's something you can do, but it really sounds like you're in an echo chamber with a lot of static.
Can you hear me now?
May I suggest if you have it playing on a computer behind you that you mute what's behind you so that it doesn't echo?
No, nothing else is playing.
Oh. Okay, well, let's keep going. Let's
Okay. All I was trying to say is that I think that people have a very biased view because of the stigma of marijuana. I'm not a user, but I just see that it's a really fascinating subject. My friends were using it at 13 years old, and people who are going to use it are going to use it regardless. So I think that, you know, these people are growing it safely, effective. There's no chances of it being laced with fentanyl or anything else. It's much safer. I think that the whole idea of kids being around and all that stuff, I mean, it's a dispensary, it's not a lounge. I think that people are going to hang up on that, and I don't think it would bring down the character of Ossining. I just wanted to make that comment. And also another point is, I know a lot of people that are traveling to other places for weed, going to the Berkshires, paying 25% tax to get what they want. So all that would happen is that people would just travel to where they can get it. So I have to say that I'm happy that it's in Ossining. Hopefully it'll bring a lot of tax dollars to our town. And I'm also for the smaller buffer, because looking at those maps, I feel like it'd be impossible to find a location for these dispensaries. So I just wanted to leave those comments.
Okay. What I gleaned from that, I don't want to repeat everything said, but if we're looking at zoning, what I'm hearing you say is, given a choice between the 1,000 feet versus the lesser number, that if it were you, you would recommend the smaller, so that there is greater opportunity for the businesses. I'm only repeating it because it was a little difficult to hear. So regarding the zoning, I think that was, I think, your headline statement. I appreciate you know, the input. Let me read some of the chats. I do want to remind people that we will be concluding no later than 9. We're not extending. So if anybody has questions, this would be the time, because we are going to conclude on time. Let me go through some. So Christina Luciano, and I also have to read this because in public meetings, the chat rooms are not actually visible to the public. So I'm going to read it out. Thank you for explaining, clarifying the maps. You're welcome. Elizabeth Legate, Risky Music School in Crone Avenue is a school. Yes. Question mark, class of kids go there. Shouldn't this area be restricted? I'm not sure. We will be looking at different businesses. The fact that a business has children in it doesn't make it an education center. There are definitions. It's how they're licensed. Not all places that call themselves education are actually registered and licensed as education. You could teach music and be a music school and a retailer. It just depends about when we start looking at different zones, how that would work. Elizabeth Feldman, do after school care program count? Similar question. It depends how they're registered by the Department of Health, or, you know, just because you're an aftercare program doesn't make you part of this. We would have to look into that. Stuart's going to correct me if I'm wrong. It's just that this is something that I understand. So I am simply going with that. Kim Jeffrey, the OCC is a daycare and educational center across from Theater O, which is a children's theater place. Okay. I mean, yeah, I think the issue was going downhill, how much property they have and how their boundaries are being defined. Thank you for the info. Oh, Kemi Poke, thank you for all the information provided tonight. You're welcome. We're always happy to see community members share information, insights. We always accept compliments, so feel free to throw them our way. But we also welcome disagreements. It's the whole point, actually. I see. Is that Ms. Vernon?
It is. So Francine Vernon, I'm going to bring you over. If you could please turn your camera on and unmute. I'm bringing you over. Thank you. There's a slight delay.
There she is.
She's not going to be able to turn her camera on. It wouldn't let me bring her over that way.
Oh. But Ms. Vernon, I think you have to unmute.
I've sent her a notification to unmute. Maybe she didn't know that she had her hand up.
I don't know.
Ms. Vernon?
Okay, well, oh. Well, we can also take others if there are chats or anything. And I'm not looking to extend the evening. I am simply making space for people. Some people came to listen. Some people came to converse. Some people might have some thoughts now. So I just want to make sure we give everyone the appropriate space. Ms. Vernon went back. I guess she must be having problems with it. We'll have to reach out to her via email to see if there was some commentary that she wanted to add so we can address it. Okay. Well, I am not seeing any more hands up. I'm going to turn it over if there's any commentary, any addendums by staff or board members, so that we might conclude the evening's forum. If anybody has anything to add, let's hear it. Okay, I'm not seeing any physical hands up. I want to thank everyone. I do want to thank you, Jaime. I think the presentations and the maps are super helpful to people, and it's something people can look at beyond this meeting. Feel free once things go on the website to share with your friends. We're interested in what the constituents, businesses, and residents of the village of Ossining. We get information and commentary from people outside the village, you know, from other states, whatever. Always nice to hear from folks, but we actually represent the people of the village of Ossining and the businesses here. I very much appreciate all the work that the staff does. I think for those of you who really do tune in to government, to local government, I think you'll agree with me that the staff under the village manager really helps in doing homework to both help the legislative body and the community at large really see things visually, to learn more, to be educated in a very responsive way. So I thank them for that. We will post whenever we have the next town hall with a topic of focus, and people can bring other topics if they wish. They can contact me if there's topics that we may not have surveyed people about. We did send a survey out a while ago to see what topics are of interest to people. And I actually think, if I don't see hands and I don't see anything in the chat room, that we can conclude this particular village hall. I thank everyone for your attendance, your thoughtfulness, your commitment to help all of us live in, frankly, a community that it gets better and better every day. That's my perspective anyway. And feel free to contact us at botvillageofossining.org. And thank you all. I think I do need a motion.
Motion to adjourn, please.
Yeah, sorry, I lost my voice.
So
Excuse me.
move.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, have a very good evening, and thank you.